don't want to be a slave owner. I don't want to support slavery. I don't want to support child abuse, animal abuse, cruelty, or any of those things. We kind of tend to think of suffering as just something that happens and it's not our problem. But the truth is that if you're not willing to do anything about it, then you are allowing it on purpose. You're causing it. You're deciding that it's okay and that you shouldn't do anything about it. So inaction is an action. It's an active choice, right? So, why would anyone want to live in a cruel world like this? Basically, the society and the world that we live in, the civilization we live in, it's a meat grinder. It's built and it's fueled by the blood of children, essentially, like quite literally. Now, I'm not talking about, satanic rituals. I'm talking about the meat industry, the animal industry, human suffering, right? Everything we see is built by suffering, by slavery, basically. So if your ideas are so stout, why don't you engage honestly? I do engage honestly, Alex. Oh, you guys are funny. You guys are funny. Where was I? So, by the way, yeah, the queue is open. If anyone wants to join and debate, that's what we're here for. But yeah, I don't want to be supporting slavery, right? So imagine if we still had slavery in the West or wherever you live. If you had slaves, right, maybe you'd feel guilty about it and be like, oh God, what am I doing? This is awful. But that is what we're doing by allowing extreme suffering and saying that nobody should be safe from it. It's actually worse than slavery, way worse than slavery. Slavery is one small issue compared to all suffering and all of the worst types of suffering therein, right? Rodney is asking, how do I help? So go to the website, proextinction.com. There's a clickable link on my profile, and you can read about us, read about the movement, and at the bottom of the website, you can click on the link to join our Discord or our WhatsApp group, and you can become an activist, spread the message with us, make videos with us, and basically we have to grow the movement until we have enough people to achieve and cause total extinction, to research the best ways to do it, how to carry it out, and then to go ahead and do it. So that's only going to happen when we have enough people. So growing the movement is the only way to make it possible. So that's what we're doing. And all of the other activists who have joined from around the world, that's what they're doing as well. They're making videos, they're doing live streams, they're making social media accounts on all different platforms and apps, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. So that's what we're doing. I'm uploading on YouTube. I do a podcast for Extinction as well. This isn't the only activism that I do. I built the website for the movement. We're doing science on suffering and psychology. We're doing loads of stuff. It's almost like a full-time thing. All right, so the queue is still empty. If anybody wants to join, tell you what, let's get Matt on. Why the hell not?
Hey, man.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's okay. Real quick, you had mentioned that the majority of things that are living exist in a state of suffering, that they are at a disadvantage and they suffer beyond acceptable means. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the percentage, 1%, 0.1%, they exist in an acceptable state of suffering, minimal suffering?
Well, you have various levels of suffering at different times, but everyone's always in danger of suffering. So it's not just about the suffering that exists and that we can see. The bigger problem even is actually the risk and the danger of it happening. So that means we shouldn't just have total extinction. We should make sure that there's no risk or danger of life coming back, no risk or danger of suffering.
All right, so if just the 0.1% of people existed, 0.1% of animals existed, none of the other animals existed, and instead of using other animals or other life for sustenance, it was all robotic. right? You have robots creating amino acids and all these different chains that creatures can then eat, which is fine because none of those things are living. And the pain receptors on those living things are turned off. They would exist in a state that requires no suffering and does not experience suffering. So would they be acceptable to exist?
I would say that there's no point allowing life if it's in suboptimal, imperfect conditions, basically, especially when there's a chance of suffering. So what you're describing is sort of a scenario where there's no chance of suffering, but you also made it sound like it wouldn't be a very good life at the same time. So, we wouldn't really support that. We only really support life existing in perfect conditions, which basically would require, magic. So that doesn't exist. And that's why we do need extinction, because it is the only way to provide 100% safety from a bad life, from suffering, from anything going wrong.
So you're saying it must exist in a perfect status, but non-existence, would you call that existing in perfect status?
Well, obviously you're not existing, but you are perfectly safe from danger and from suffering.
Wouldn't safe be like safe from being unalive, safe from being hurt? If you are, in fact, not alive, you're the opposite of safe.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the first basic level of safety is to not stub your toe, not, fall over. But that's only really safety from mild forms of suffering, right? Mild forms of danger. There's actually danger much worse out there, which means that not being born is actually the only way to be safe from it.
And real quick, you also have no access to any pleasures, any happiness, any enjoyment, because obviously you're not living. So I guess, how do you determine objectively that the pleasures or positives are not worth the negatives of suffering, even with the 0.1% that are not living in any suffering and just have a risk of one day potentially could suffer? Like, why does it outweigh it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the thing is that suffering is too extreme and terrible to allow. And it also has unlimited potential of severity, which is what most people don't really factor into their thinking. So, if we're going to put children into the worst life ever lived, right, that's obviously a horrific thing to do. But you're saying that's acceptable unless you are saying that we should be against suffering. So unless we provide ultimate safety, 100% safety from suffering, then we're allowing the very worst things and perhaps even worse things than that to happen. So, let's take the worst life ever lived, the worst child abuse ever. We're saying that it's gotten this bad before, but in the future it can get even worse, and that's acceptable. It's not acceptable.
I'm not saying like child abuse and all that stuff would be acceptable. That's why I'm saying there's systems in place by robots that would not have to suffer to give people lives that only the 0.1% experience now because they're currently living off of other people. If robots take that place, then you put all these other people in a status of the 0.1% where they don't have to suffer and you don't have that risk happen. But the point being is that the judgment to say that the positive sides do not justify the negative sides of even that utopia is a personal subjective claim that you're making. And my whole question here, I guess, boils down to, why do you get to make that judgment call for the rest of life, even ones that aren't even human and would share the same viewpoint as you? Why do you get to be the dictator of that and not allow them to decide?
Yeah, so firstly, in reality, there is no minority of sufferers. So it's actually the default for life is to have a painful, gruesome death as a baby. So that's what life is. That's what the majority of life is. And that's, that problem is never going away. We can only solve it with extinction. So, basically, if you're in hell, which we effectively are, then making sure that no life is sent to hell is the right thing to do. People have it upside down where they think that we're in some sort of paradise and that the more life, the better. But actually, it's the exact opposite. The vast majority of life will be tortured to death as a baby. That means that life itself is a bad thing. So the thing is, if we don't do extinction and we don't care about extinction, then essentially this 99% experience of babies being tortured to death, which is happening on Earth right now, that's going to happen everywhere throughout the universe. So if you're saying don't do extinction, don't worry about extinction, then you're saying we can allow infinite babies to be tortured to death. So it's not just hypothetical, it's actually what will happen. And that's what people are supporting without realizing it. So no, we have to be against suffering. We live in far too evil and cruel of a world. This world effectively just tortures babies, and that's what the entire world, the entire universe does. It literally is a torture device for babies. So we need to stop romanticizing it, stop thinking that it's some sort of paradise and that suffering has some sort of balance. Over 99% of life is being tortured to death as a baby, and this will carry on in worse and more gruesome ways for billions of more years. And you're saying that we should just ignore them and focus on our own selfish pleasure. That's never going to be acceptable. And to get back to sort of your main question, why is suffering more important than pleasure? Well, the thing is that, even if you did have a choice between allowing it and, letting some suffer and letting some have fun like we have now, the thing is that if you're deciding what should be, right, if we're taking a caretaker mentality, which is what we should do, if we're trying to be responsible, then safety comes first, and the extreme severity of suffering and how horrifically terrible it is too extreme and terrible to allow, and it can't be justified by any amount of pleasure. Can you really say that a child being abused horrifically by a disgusting sadist or pedophile, can you really say that any pleasure in this world makes up for that child abuse? So, let's say this child is getting abused, they're being tortured, it's horrific. If I go and have an ice cream, does that suddenly make it okay? No, and it never will, basically. So suffering is not something that you can use as a bargaining chip for pleasure. There's no sort of exchange rate where we can say, right, 5 children got abused to death today, I need to have 10 ice creams to make up for it. It will never work like that.
Real quick, with children being tortured or molested and all that different stuff, and then they grow up, you can ask them specifically if they just want to unalive themselves, if they want to continue.
Yeah, but you can't ask the majority because the majority die. The majority die, Matt. So you're living in a fantasy. You're living in a fantasy where you're romanticizing it and you're thinking, yeah, there's abuse, but then they go on to have a great life. No, the vast majority die. So your fantasy isn't real. That's all it is, a fantasy, a dream.
What statistics are you pulling to say that?
Yeah, over 99.9% of life born on this planet will die as a baby in a gruesome and horrific way. That's how nature works. Most life born will die.
If you didn't cut me off, it was
Sorry?
Yeah, it's okay. You cut me off, so you probably didn't get the full gist of it. A human who is touched as a kid or raped as a kid and grows up and has their own kids or has their own life and all that stuff, you do notice that a lot of those people have not unalived themselves, which means that they found unalivement worse than the trauma that they went through in the long run. They decided not to do that. But the point being is that we have developed.
What about the ones that are worse off than that, Matt? You're ignoring them.
Including surveillance.
Matt, you're ignoring the ones that are worse off than them.
No, literally not. As I'm telling you right now, before you cut me off, we have developed technology that reduces child mortality rates. We have developed agencies that check up on children, check up on families to make sure things are not happening. We have psychologists that will flag things.
Matt, the problem is you're saying that we shouldn't have a zero tolerance policy. So you're saying that child suffering and abuse is acceptable to some extent. It's not. It's not acceptable to any extent.
This is zero tolerance policy, bro. If you don't find the perpetrator, you don't find the criminal, then you can't prosecute the criminal. But if you do find it, it is a zero tolerance policy. What you're saying is,
Matt,
let's take the place of the criminal and just
it's the
kill
opposite.
the kid instead.
Matt, stop. Let's just stop, okay? We're talking over each other. So the justice system doesn't work, okay? I can go out right now and commit abuse to anyone. It's not going to stop me. So the current system we have right now guarantees that that will happen. Dealing with it afterwards is too late. Once you've tortured a child to death, it doesn't matter if you arrest the person that did it. The damage is already done. So we shouldn't allow that to happen. That's what you're advocating for.
You're also not allowing that kid to have a full and fruitful life. You're also not allowing people who are not affected by this to have a full life.
It's not us, Matt. No, stop. It's not us that are not allowing that kid to have a full and fruitful life. It's existence. It's life itself. It's the danger of this world, right? You're in some sort of fantasy where you think that all of them are having a great life, where actually most of them are not having a great life and are then dying. So they're not going on to have this great experience of learning from their suffering, Matt. That's just a fantasy in your head. You're not living in the real world. So thanks for coming on, Matt. We're going to move on to someone who perhaps is living in the real world. Let's move on to Quentin Tarantino. Quentin, how's it going?
Hello, I'm good today. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I've overheard your conversation with Matt, and I used to be suicidal, so I've definitely thought about these thoughts as well. And I think I understand what you mean with like babies. Like most of the babies you mean are animals or insects, I think.
Yeah.
Like baby turtles, like their survival rate isn't that high. But what I always wonder, I saw a few of your videos, or like with anti-natalist people, why are you still here? If you are aware of so much, I'm not a native English speaker, by the way, and maybe you've heard this question a lot of times. But yeah, why are you still here? Going through it all, knowing it, like animal suffering in like factory farms, etc. What keeps you going?
Because I'm not selfish, basically.
Yeah, but I see like on the screen like compassion for all. So you want to keep on living to do a little bit of good in this world that is full of suffering, or
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I have the same opinion, but yeah, it's knowing all the suffering, not only with humans but also animals. Yeah, it's sometimes quite hard to really fathom what's going on. But yeah, on the other hand, I just think like nature is cruel, and a lot of people don't realize when they say like how cruel it actually is. Like yesterday, I work as a forestry guard, so like a forest ranger here in the Netherlands, and yeah, I've seen like deer still walking around with their intestines out because they were bitten by a wolf, and yeah, I see that, and on the one hand, I think, well, oh yeah, that's nature, but on the other hand, yeah, I can't look at it. Still, I've been doing this job for 5 years now. And still, every time I see it, or like a squash bug or something, like, yeah, my only thought every time I see it is, I hope they die quick. But yeah, it's, I get what you mean. And yeah,
It's just pointless suffering, basically. And the thing is, it's actually an evolutionary survival mechanism in humans to look away from suffering, to not think about it, to not appreciate it fully, to not want to think about it. Because if they did, then there's a chance that they wouldn't want their own child to go through that, and so they wouldn't have kids. So, not understanding suffering and being incredibly ignorant of suffering is actually supports human reproduction and reproduction of life itself. And that's kind of one of the main ways in which life and reproduction happens. It's by forcing life to be ignorant and to not understand the dangers that it's putting its own children into. When you consider that over 99% of life born in nature will die in infancy, It's not really a rational decision for any parent to put a child into a situation where they have a 1% survival rate or worse, right? So nature and evolution had to twist our minds into being completely ignorant and buffoonishly ignorant on this stuff, because it was the only way to make us reproduce. Anyone that didn't, ignore suffering, they went extinct, and the more ignorant ones managed to reproduce more and more. So we live in a truly crazy world because of that.
Yeah, what I think most, I think why it is important to sometimes be ignorant of the suffering. Well, I don't think you should be, but why a human mind needs to have that capability is to keep going on, to live your own life. Like we all have a biological instinct to go on. Like I was suicidal once, and now I'm not, because I still see glimpses, like on my work, like glimpses of beauty, but not ignoring all the suffering that's also happening. But if I'm constantly thinking about that the whole day, nothing would come of me. Like I wouldn't even get out of bed. And on the other hand, I recently became uncle of two nephews. And when I heard it, I was extremely joyful, of course, because wow, I'm gonna be uncle, and like I can't wait to play like football with them when I'm like older, when they are older. If I can still do it back then, because I'm growing older myself. I'm 25, but I feel like a unk,
Oh wow.
But on the other hand, it's like in my job, I can see the results of climate change a lot. So I'm really worried about my own future, but even more about theirs. Like, how's the world gonna look like when, they are older, like my age or 50? Like water wars. Will they starve to death? Like I worry about that right now. And my sister, so their mother. Yeah, I once tried to talk to her with these thoughts, and she. Oh well, we'll see. It's like she doesn't have a worry in the world. So
it's forced ignorance, basically. We're born to be ignorant, so that we can make others born. Basically the sort of system in our brains, or the system of our brains that's doing this, it's way more complex and powerful than people realize. The force of nature, the force of reproduction, has really twisted people's brains, massively. People will come onto my show and say things like, the last guy said it, that child abuse is good for children because it makes them stronger. So, you have to be completely insane to say things like that, but you also have to be completely insane to reproduce.
This might be a wild take, but my dad also, well, not really hard, but he did sometimes hit me. Not my sister though, maybe because she was a girl. But then when I was older, 14, and I was taller than him at one point, stronger, and then I hit him back again. And now when I have a fight, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not agreeing with like pedophilia, or you know what I mean. I hope. But I do think there are forms of suffering that helps you essentially to
the problem is that people focus on that. It's the same coping mechanism, right? They always want to believe that suffering is good, right? And if anything says suffering's bad, then they go, oh no, and they think about the good suffering. So they're like, suffering's bad, but I learn from suffering. But obviously, suffering for a child being tortured to death is bad. So that's
a great extreme, I think.
No,
I mean,
no.
like,
that's the most common experience on this planet.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, like I am a human, so like I speak from a human perspective. but we as conscious, I think every animal's conscious, but on another way.
Well, we shouldn't discriminate. That's the point. By saying, let's just talk about humans, you're saying that all of these other children don't deserve, any attention, right?
No, no, no. Like I like bugs. I like every animal, but that's how like a bird eats a beetle. The cats, the wild cat, like in my work, which I see, they eat the bird. I know the perpetual chain of suffering, but yeah, it's necessary for another other animal not to suffer, and that's fucked up. How nature, how yeah, this all happened.
But there's no upside to this. There's no point at which child abuse starts to create good things.
No, 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 no. But for my personal experience, it helped me to prevent more suffering. When people are bad mouthing me, for example, that I just let them walk over me.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But there's just no point focusing on, the lucky ones, right? The small minority of privileged people, right? We're in an ocean. We're in an ocean of children being tortured, and you're trying to talk about some small minority of lucky ones, right? So we need to stop ignoring all of these children being tortured. It's insane that we're doing it.
Yeah, but okay. So you like Extinction? What is your like? We're in an extinction event already, like the Anthropocene, or how? Sorry, I'm not a native English speaker, but the in Dutch it's called the Anthropocene, like the age of humans. Like we have climate change now, so a lot of animals are going extinct.
Right, but total extinction is a different thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
but how do you want to do that? Like we now have the possibility to do so. I think like we have enough nukes to do it. But I don't want that.
No. There will never be enough nukes to do it. Nukes are not the way to do it. The asteroids had the power of 1 billion nukes, and it still didn't cause total extinction. So that will never be a solution.
So how are we gonna get about an asteroid?
We need science and real technology. We need euthanasia. That's the way to do it. So we have to research the best ways to do it and invent it and implement it. And the only way to do that is to grow the movement until we have enough people to carry this out.
All right. Well, I do agree with you on some parts, but the last part, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Quentin. Appreciate your time. But we should be on board with total safety for all children from abuse. And if you're not on board with that, then that's sad. There's really nothing more important. Okay, next guest is coming up. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
But why are you using words like total extinction? Like
because we shouldn't discriminate, right? Everyone deserves safety from suffering, and it would be selfish to limit that.
gotcha, but why do you think that suffering is bad?
Because when you hear a child screaming while it's being abused, it just seems too bad, right? It seems bad. If it doesn't seem bad to you, then fair enough. But to me, child abuse is obviously a bad thing.
I think you're mixing.
So you don't think child abuse is a bad thing?
Child abuse.
You don't think child abuse is a bad thing?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. But then did that cause all humans to suffer?
Yeah, but you. So again, people, they come on this show and it's like, well, this child is being abused, and they're like, but what about everyone else? Let's just ignore that child. So it's a mentality of ignoring the victims, oppressing them, and hiding them, and basically just never talking about them, and always pivoting to say, yeah, forget that most children are being tortured. Let's just, focus on the happy ones, because it's easier, right? It's like a coping mechanism for you or something. You find it difficult to actually think about the victims and their suffering, and that it's so difficult for you to bring yourself to really think about them. that you don't.
Okay, well, see, but they're not suffering by themselves, right?
Yes, they
So
are.
they're well, I'm saying they're not just, spontaneously suffering, correct?
Well, yeah, they are.
Someone's causing the
No,
suffering.
don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. When someone gets cancer, is that because someone caused it? When someone gets chronic pain, is that because someone's caused it? Don't be
If a
ridiculous.
child get abused, is that because someone's causing it?
It's because nature causes it. Nature is the ultimate abuser. Nature forces life to exist in what is essentially torture devices and then tortures them until they reproduce, right? That's all nature is. That's all this world is. It's just a torture device for reproduction.
Gotcha. But the world always gives every individual the option.
No, it
They
doesn't.
can
That's
every
ridiculous.
individual if they
What are you
didn't
talking
agree.
about?
No,
Most
I'm just saying.
Look,
I'm trying to explain
you're living
myself.
in a fantasy. You're living in a fantasy. Most babies born in this world will die in a gruesome, horrific way a few days after being born. Okay, so what part of that is life giving all of these children a great opportunity? It may be in your dreams, but nowhere else.
Now, how about this? That wasn't your experience, correct?
Well, obviously not.
Oh, obviously, and it wasn't
That should be
mine.
obvious, right? If you
Or
can
we,
use
or you
observation.
and I, anomalies.
Yeah, the most common experience on this planet right now is children being tortured.
Okay, well, if are you in America?
England.
You're in England. Now, right now, we have issues like the Epstein. Would that, I mean, is that part of your conversation? Because that's
Um,
about, that whole subject is about the abuse of children.
yeah, but children suffer in every different type of way, right? So, child suffering is the real problem. Human suffering, animal suffering, all suffering. So yeah, we shouldn't focus on just one different type. You can have different types of extreme suffering, so the type doesn't really matter.
But
But
you're making
to say it's all caused
suffering.
by humans is ridiculous. Most
Watch
suffering
this.
happens in nature, and it happens to babies who are being eaten alive.
Gotcha. But the let's say child abused or children who's being abused as children, they can grow up and have a productive life, even though they had a rough
Not the
start.
ones that get killed though, and also not all of them do grow up to have a
I
nice life.
agree.
So once again, as I've been saying over and over again, people only care about the lucky ones because it's emotionally convenient to them, right? So you say you've got all these children being killed, and then the survivors fucked up beyond repair, and then a few lucky ones go on to somehow recover, and you're like, yeah, but they should keep getting fucked up and killed so that the small minority can grow from it. It's just stupid.
Well, let me share with you. Uh, uh, Let me share with you. I'm in America, right?
Nah, nah. Okay, the queue is empty. Let's get someone else on. Americans are the worst, really. I think we can all agree on that. Funnily enough, we don't actually have any Americans in the movement. So we've got people from literally all over the world: Europe, South America, Canada, Asia, India, everywhere. But we don't have any Americans. Presumably because Americans are just far too stupid, basically. Oh no, we got a restriction. Yeah, another problem with doing activism and another problem with this world and society is that if you even talk about suffering, you get told off, right? You get punished. So you make videos about suffering and try and expose it, and the platforms will call you out for hate speech and for, graphic content. So, and that system basically reinforces suffering. It enables, causes suffering. If we can't talk about it and expose it and, try and solve it, then it just carries on. And that's how this whole world is set up. You try to talk to people about it. They say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. You try and do a street protest, you're seen as a pariah. People only care about their comfort and their convenience, basically. You try and say, these children are being abused, and they say, wow, what a loser, do something better with your time. So we live in an evil society. We live in effectively a slave owner society. Again, all of these children and animals suffering right now to feed you, to feed the city you live in, all of the humans that are suffering terribly so that all of this reproduction can keep going on. They're basically your slaves. So to sit there and say, they should keep being born into lives of extreme agony and hell, that's a form of slavery, basically. It's saying, we're benefiting from their suffering, so keep them suffering. It's a form of slavery. It's actually worse than slavery. It's kind of like the ultimate form of slavery. It's like the advanced form of slavery. So it's way worse. It's way worse. And that's what we're doing. These people come on and say, children being abused is a good thing. So, I'm saying let's end it. And they're saying, no, I'm going to fight to continue it. So, yes, their action is supporting child abuse continuing. In fact, they're literally advocating for it. These sickos, they don't even realize that, people are going to listen to what they're saying and go, wow, maybe I should abuse that child then, because it will be good for them. Like, these sick fucks, honestly, we have to be against child abuse. The number of people that come on my show and say it's a good thing is just mind-blowing. Okay, let's get another guest on. Hello, how's it going?
Hello. I didn't want to join, but I agree with you. I accidentally clicked it, but I agree with you. Like, I like listening to you. I did accidentally click the button. Good luck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I
get
agree
you.
with you. Okay. Bye. Can we? I didn't want to go here.
I can do it. Thank you for coming on. If you agree with us, and if you want a world with no suffering, and you think we should fight for a world with no suffering, then the only way is going to be total extinction. If you don't have total extinction, then there's always going to be a risk, and that risk is always going to manifest. And even if you get lucky and it doesn't manifest, it's still wrong to put life and innocence into risk. So it's not just about the existence of suffering, it's about the risk of it. If there's a risk of children being abused, it's wrong. There should be zero risk. There's no reason to put them in this risk. So the pleasures in this world, happiness, should we prioritize happiness, or should we prioritize safety from children being tortured, which is the most common experience in the world? We should obviously prioritize safety, and yes, you do have to make a choice. Do we prioritize happiness and let the children get tortured? Or do we stop the children from being tortured and stop the selfish pricks at the top of the food chain that come on and say that child abuse is a good thing? Do we stop them from being happy and protect the children? It should be an incredibly obvious choice. So again, it's not just about the existence of suffering, it's about the risk. That means that we can't just have total extinction. We need the most thorough extinction possible. And that is what our movement is working towards and prioritizes fully. So that means working towards a universe where there is no life, no possibility of life at all, and no possibility of suffering as a result. So that's what we're working towards. Essentially, the highest levels of safety possible and hypothetically possible. We should work to provide the absolute most safety possible for life. And anything less than that is selfish, unethical, immoral, and unnecessary, right? If you prioritize happiness of some selfish people, then you are putting those children in danger. Like, you literally are, right? Now, people really tend to think of this just relating to the planet. They think of it in very small-minded ways. They think of, obviously we have vast majority of animals on Earth are suffering terribly. So that's an easy slam dunk for extinctionists. They should definitely not have to suffer anymore. But people will ignore that because they can't argue against it, and they'll just talk about humans. You know, they constantly come on the show and say, no, I want to talk about humans. Yeah, I know, because it's easy for you, even though you're essentially avoiding the real problem, right? The real problem is all of the suffering in nature. Now, humans suffer too, and that there should be no humans as well, because they're still in risk. They just have slightly better conditions. But the biggest problem is animals in nature. Over 99% of them suffer terribly, if not more. You wouldn't want to be an animal anyway. It's obviously a terrible life. You're unintelligent. You don't understand anything. You can't look after yourself. There's no medicine, no shelter. You're running for your life all day, every day, and then you get caught and eaten alive horrifically. You've got starvation, you're freezing to death, diseases, parasites, you know, every single bad thing you can imagine happens in nature because it's the worst conditions. So it happens to humans as well. Far too often, far too many humans are trapped in a life of hell and extreme suffering where they overwhelmingly would have been better off not being born, right? Overwhelmingly would have been better off. But even, you know, people tend to think of some sort of utopia for humanity where, you know, there's almost no risk of anything going wrong, and they think that's all we should work towards, you know, that's all they care about. But, you know, the majority of the population is animals being tortured, baby animals being eaten alive. You wouldn't want to experience that. You wouldn't want your mother to experience that. They shouldn't have to experience that. And that's most life on this planet is getting that. But that's also going to happen in the rest of the universe. So, you know, this Earth-centric thinking is completely illogical as well. And extinctionism makes even more sense when you consider that the rest of the universe is going to be full of planets going through the exact same thing, which is billions of years of starting from the very first point of evolution. The first life form comes about on a planet out there, just like it did on Earth, and then eventually, you know, you've got billions of years of animals torturing each other and being tortured by nature. So that's going to happen on, you know, any planets out there that do develop life. That's going to happen. And science research has shown, and we've done it thoroughly, this is our job, basically. It has shown that life is likely to be everywhere in the universe. So the universe is actually far more likely than most people realize to be full of life, and it will be essentially the exact same thing as what we've seen on Earth, where you have basically you have plants, maybe some fish, you know, animals, insects. It's going to be very similar. Yeah, they're going to look different. They're going to look alien, but they're just going to be different types of animals. And some of these planets might develop intelligence, but they might not. They'll have extinction events. It's basically going to be the exact same story as Earth out there in the rest of the universe, which means the same suffering here. 99% of babies being born are being tortured, freezing, starving, being eaten alive as babies. That's the most common thing because animals are food on legs. That's how the system works. Like, they are food on legs. The easiest ones to eat are the babies. And it's not always a nice experience. In fact, it's never a nice experience. And sometimes it's way worse than other times. You know, sometimes it means spending hours being eaten alive and having to suffer that. And the fear and the pain, the confusion, the distress. You know, just, again, I said this on my last stream, but imagine a human baby being eaten alive. Right? That is what we're dealing with. So people tend to think of animals and they don't give a shit. But then you say, okay, but this is the same as human babies being eaten alive. Imagine someone, you know, with a knife and fork and a baby on the plate eating it while it's alive, right? You wouldn't want to see that. You wouldn't want that to happen to any baby. Yet people are perfectly fine with it happening to animals. Even though animals suffer just as bad as we do, if not worse. And then, you know, again, that's not the only form of suffering, being eaten alive. You know, there's diseases, there's chronic pain, there's brain damage. there's schizophrenia, all sorts of terrible ways that make your life so bad that it's overwhelmingly true that you would have been better off not being born. All right, let's get another person on. We've got a few people in the queue now, so let's get on. Dan, hello.
Hello there.
How's it going?
I just want to ask you a question. So is this something that you think we need to do? We need to completely destroy. I'm struggling to understand the concept of what you're grasping. Like you seem to speak a lot, but not a lot of what anyone gets info from. Like you're talking about different planetary systems. We don't even understand what life is on planetary systems, yet you're bartering on saying, oh, they've got this in every planet. No, they haven't, bro. Like, you need to wake up a little bit and kind of...
have you done research on this?
Mate, I speak... Why don't you... I'll do you a big... Hang on. Yes, I have. Let me finish. All
right, thanks, Dan. All right, moving on. Zamiro is joining us now. Zamiro, hello.
Hey. Hello, dude. What's up, man?
Yeah,
so this is an interesting idea. I agree with a lot of your points, but I disagree that pro-extinction is the way to go.
How would you go?
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I don't want to answer your question with the question, but I would work on doing my best to mitigate the suffering and ease the suffering rather than completely end people who are innocent.
So you would still accept some suffering then?
But I wouldn't accept it. I would work to fight against that suffering.
Yeah, but so like if you could end slavery, but you choose to just reduce it a bit, then you're accepting slavery, right? You're saying we shouldn't end it. So you
yeah. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we should still end it.
That's exactly what you're saying.
I would still be fighting to end slavery, right?
Well, no. If you're saying we can end slavery, but we shouldn't, then no, you're fighting.
I'd be saying we should. I'd be saying we should.
If you're saying we can end slavery, but we shouldn't, which is what you're saying, then no. Obviously, you're fighting to keep slavery going.
But I would be fighting to end slavery.
Well, no, you wouldn't, though, would you?
Yeah. Why would you? Why do you think that?
Because you would still be supporting slavery, right?
No, I wouldn't, because I'd be fighting against it.
Okay, so let's get this straight. If I throw 1 penny into a charity box, am I now a supporter of that charity? Wow, dude, grow up, honestly.
I mean, okay, let me ask you this. You believe that you want to end suffering, or you want to make everyone extinct because there's suffering that you can't end, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you cure every disease? Can you prevent every earthquake, prevent every injury? No, obviously you can't.
But by making everyone extinct, making everything on life extinct, you nullify the possibility of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good thing, right? Nullifying the possibility of torture, children being tortured to death, babies being eaten alive. That's a good thing.
No, it's not, because
so nullifying the possibility of babies being eaten alive is not a good thing.
You're ending the lives of babies growing up and living good lives.
Well, which ones? Which ones?
You're doing what? Well, according to you, you're making everyone extinct. So
you would prioritize the minority. So you would prioritize the minority.
How am I prioritizing the minority?
Because the majority of life gets killed as a baby, tortured to death as a baby.
And what you're doing is you're ending those lives, just like those people who are doing
so you think that you think death is a bad thing, Zamiro? Is that right?
I mean,
you're getting scared now, aren't you? Right? Because I'm actually pushing.
I don't know why you're so hostile. I mean, I don't think
because I'm actually pushing you on your bullshit.
I don't think death is a bad thing. I don't fear
You're tripping over yourself now, Zamiro. You're finished. You're done. So yeah, you are supporting child abuse. Okay, moving on. Let's get the next guest on. Hello, how's it going?
Hello. I had a question about the morality of what you're saying, and just in general, what if I told you I don't suffer? Like, I don't suffer, and
I
I'm
would
good.
say that's incredibly selfish. You know, if you know that children are being abused and someone says we should stop this, and you say, "But I don't suffer,"
Okay,
then I would not want to really be your friend.
okay. And what if I told you I like to suffer?
Then
Would you turn me?
I would say that you know you are a disgusting person to make this all about yourself when there are children
No,
being tortured
no,
out
it's not
there.
about myself.
I would say that you're a disgusting person, revolting, morally reprehensible, and you should feel ashamed. You know, we're here talking about children being tortured. This isn't a hypothetical, it's a real thing. This is actually happening right now. There's children screaming, being tortured, being murdered right now. And you have clowns like that coming on, trying to talk about their kinks, basically. Just disgusting. Okay, next guest. Let's carry on. Let's get some more disgusting people on. Boo, hello.
Hello. I just have a question.
Go for it.
So how would this pro-extinction go on? Like, how would this, like, let's say hypothetically it were to be passed on, what would happen?
What do you mean by passed on?
Like, approved extinction. Like, if the movement was like,
Yeah.
everyone was on the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
page.
So, if we controlled the world tomorrow, we would begin removing our dependence on animals on Earth, working towards animal extinction with euthanasia, not sterilization. Euthanasia provides immediate safety from suffering, safety from a cruel death, and safety from reproducing. So euthanasia is the way to go. And then we would also start, so that's, you know, taking care of animals on Earth. Then we would also start researching what the limits are for if there's anything we can do to do universal extinction, and do as much as we can for that. So humanity should continue reproducing. We need a strong and powerful, healthy humanity, because if humanity goes extinct, then we can't do animal extinction, and we can't, put in the time to make sure that life doesn't come back. And so we need to do it. You know, someone has to do it, right? So humanity is the ones that's going to prevent all of this suffering.
So we would also take the animals out, not just us.
Animals suffer worse than us. So absolutely, yeah.
Won't they suffer because of us?
No, not at all. The vast majority of animal suffering happens in nature, and it's from starving to death, freezing to death, and mostly from being eaten alive by other animals, chased for their lives by other animals. It's a horrific, terrible experience. You know, you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want your mother to experience that, to be chased and then murdered. That's what happens to most life born on this planet and most life born in the world.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I've never seen this movement before, and it was a very interesting take. Like, I've never had this thought before, so I just wanted to come out on here. I don't truly have an opinion. I don't know if I want children, so in a sense, I think, in a way, I wouldn't mind going extinct, I guess, if you put it that way, so... What an interesting viewpoint, and thank you for putting it in my head.
Thank you for coming on. Please consider checking out our website. We have our manifesto. We have a 40-question long FAQ with loads of information. There's a clickable link to the website on my TikTok profile. Follow me as well, of course. And at the bottom of the page on our website, we have our links to our Discord group and our WhatsApp group, and that's how you can join the movement and become an activist. Join the group and say hello, and we'll welcome you into the community, and we'll get you making videos, and we'll work together to spread the message and grow the movement until we have enough people to actually carry out our plan and proceed with total extinction. There's only one way that's going to work. It's getting enough people into the movement until we have enough to go ahead and do something, take over the world, whatever, right? Imagine if we had 1 billion people, would probably be enough to take over the world and go ahead with extinction. We might be able to do it with less people. And there may also be lots of other ways that we can work on it. So, we're not just making videos on TikTok. We're actually doing the planning. We're building the ethics. We're building the roadmap. We're doing all of this stuff. It's a serious movement, a serious organization full of people. I didn't even make this movement. I'm just one activist of many. We have dozens of social media channels all over different platforms, Instagram, lots of people making videos, doing live streams as well. Just search Pro Extinction, search Abolish Suffering. You'll see all of our channels. All right, let's get the next guest on. We have quite a few people in the queue. The queue is healthy today. I'm liking it. Hello.
What's going on, man?
Yeah, not much.
I just had one question, if that's all right.
Go for it.
So you say that you want to get rid of all animals first, right? So that we can then move on and do ourselves and whatever other life that we can.
Yep.
How do you expect us to survive if there's no animals on Earth?
Yeah, so we need to remove our dependence on animals on Earth. And if there's any that it's literally impossible to remove our dependence on them, then we would keep them around to support the greater mission of cosmic extinction. However, I personally don't think that that's going to happen. I think that we should be able to fully remove our dependence on them, have vegan agriculture, vegan food, whatever else. So yeah, I think it's more than possible. We have all the time in the world to do it, right?
I'm thinking more kind of like environment-wise, right? Like we need them to sustain, like not ecosystem, like the world basically, for it to carry on the way it is.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. But I do think that given billions of years, we could probably sort that out.
I suppose, yeah. All right, I mean that's all I had, but I appreciate you talking to me.
Thanks for coming on.
All right, have a good one.
You too. All right. Carrying on, we have Terry. Terry. Let's go with Terry. Hello.
How's it going, man?
Good, good.
All right. Yeah, so I just don't think this movement would ever really work, and you should probably hope people don't actually take it serious, because
why?
You can imagine a scenario where most people do take it serious. I believe it would just lead to these types of people being round up and then put in their own camps. But I do see another way. And we're so close to intelligence and technology is exploding right now. I think that maybe, just maybe, if we have a superior arbiter of humanity that is not based in human nature, right? Sin, evil, sin, or that we could, I don't know. I just feel like we have a
look. Human nature is not the problem. Nature is the problem. Nature is the one torturing animals, right?
Well, I mean, there's. Yeah, but that's the nature of things. There's also beauty. So,
but
to me,
there's no beauty in babies being tortured, though, right? And if you do find that beautiful,
absolutely not. I think
that's disgusting.
We should absolutely do something about that. We should do something about the suffering of babies. Okay, for sure.
But Terry, listen, the point of our movement. The point of our movement is to provide 100% safety. So it's not to provide 99% safety or 98% safety, 97%. It's 100%. Okay. Anything less than that, and you are putting children in the risk of the worst things possible. So that's not acceptable.
Right.
Only total safety is acceptable.
Yeah, this will only lead to you people being rounded up and put in camps.
Well,
and
you could have said that.
I'm telling you, that's where.
But listen, they had activists against slavery, right? So did they win?
Well, that's not ending all life.
Right, but right? It's the same point, right? They were against the system. So activists have always been against the system. They've always been suppressed by the system. Sorry?
Right, but but going by that logic, we are making improvements, right? We have ended slavery in a lot of areas. It's still going on, but
we've never.
Why would
the vast majority, Terry? The majority of the population has never seen any improvements.
Well, I mean, we abolished it in the West. In the West,
but Terry, the majority of the population, you're ignoring them, right? It's animals. So animals have never had
How am
an
I ignoring it?
improvement. Because you're saying that we're progressing. We're not. Animals have never had an improvement in their conditions, even once in all of history. They've always had the worst suffering, the worst
Yeah, but
conditions, and it's never, ever gotten better. And it never will. Only extinction can end that suffering, end the process that's forcing them into these lives that they never asked for, and to then be tortured.
the only way extinction would ever happen would be the way that it's actually naturally unfolding now. If we was to, have a nuclear Armageddon,
Right, but
something like
that's
that.
never going to
That's
happen.
the only way
That
that it
doesn't
would
make
happen.
sense, Terry. Terry, that doesn't make sense. Okay. The last asteroid
I don't think
had
it
the
happened
power
either.
of over. The last asteroid had the power of over 1 billion nukes. Right. We're nowhere near to having 1 million nukes on this planet, and so that asteroid didn't cause total extinction. And even if somehow there was an asteroid or a nuke that could cause total extinction on Earth, it still wouldn't be good enough. There's other planets out there. There's the possibility of life redeveloping on Earth. It's not thorough enough. It's not vast enough. So the person who made our movement, he sort of coined the term because it perfectly encapsulates what our movement is about. That we're advocating for the most vast and thorough extinction possible. So that means helping as much life as possible, as vast as possible, and then as thorough as possible, meaning the absolute maximum prevention of life developing possible. So if you just wipe life out, that's not good enough, and especially if it's just on Earth, and it's unrealistic to think that nukes could do it anyway. Okay, moving on to our next guest, Alex Phillips.
Yeah, talked to you
Hello.
quite a few times. Yeah, I just want to just put something out there, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Maybe from what you're saying is 100% correct. We do need to be extinct. Humanity does need to be extinct. But the problem that I've got with, I'm pretty sure a lot of people got a problem with this, like when you start bringing the universe into it.
Why?
Understand? Because the universe, we've never seen, someone also talked about this already before. We only know about planet Earth. We don't know about other planets. Or we don't know about other life form.
We do though. We've got pretty good science on it now, and our science has shown that the universe is likely, probable, to be teeming with life suffering.
Life of suffering.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, most people that criticize the movement, right? They're doing it from their sofa. They're doing it like they've seen one video and they think they know everything, right? But it's not until you're actually in the movement, you're looking into it, you're learning, you're researching, that you can actually have a proper educated opinion on this, right? If you want that, then you can join the movement and learn about it with us, or alternatively, you can just watch our videos about it. We've put the science out there. I would recommend.
So what technology, how the hell did you manage to find out about other life forms?
So we do a deep dive on this on episode 25 of our podcast. So you would go to YouTube and search Pro Extinction, then go on the channel, go on the live section, and it's episode 25 of the podcast, Cosmic Extinction. We do an incredibly deep dive on it with all of the science. So if you really want to learn about it, that's the way to go. If you need me to send you a link, message me on TikTok and I can do that for you.
Yeah, send me a link. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
But good stuff. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. You're on the ball on that, on Pro Extinction. But I have to research about the universal aspect. But I'll get back to you on that one. Yeah. See you, man. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Alex. It's as simple as doing as much as we can, the best that we can. So if you're in charge of extinction and you have to decide, right, should we just do Earth or should we do more? You do have a moral obligation to consider whether we should do the universe, right? And, there's really no reason to think that it's completely impossible for us to do anything. If you have a broad enough mind, then you can see the vision of it, right? We have billions of years to do something about this, literally. Even if we leave that to robots 200 years from now, they have billions of years to try and do extinction on other planets. So It's about doing as much as we can, finding the limits. So to say that there's no life or there's no way we can do anything for the universe, that's coming from a position of ignorance and being defeatist, right? We should actually try. We should look into it, do the research. Now, if the research says there's definitely going to be no life, there's definitely nothing we could do anyway, then fine, we'll just do Earth extinction. But, while there's a chance that we can do something, while there's a chance that we might need to do something, need to help them out there, we should definitely be open to it. And again, to say that we shouldn't, it's coming from a place of ignorance, really. Yeah, DPMN, sure, let's get you up. And Kilumati, 1984, yeah, we can see your comments. Hello, DPMN.
Hi, I just had a quick question. So, if somebody was like you on TikTok Live and they were saying that we should do extinction, but they were saying, like, for example, we should only make one race extinct or another race extinct, they would be banned from TikTok, right?
Yeah, I would hope so, yeah.
So why would you say that you hope they should be banned, but you should not be banned?
Because that's a form of discrimination, and it's also not a responsible way to end and prevent suffering, right? So usually genocide is about hatred, whereas extinction is about safety and responsibility and compassion.
But what if they said they wanted to save these people from discrimination and make them safe from discrimination, and they have to make them extinct because of this?
Well, that would still be an inherently irrational and irresponsible thing to do, because fighting for the extinction of one group is just inherently illogical, right? Why wouldn't you fight for the extinction of all groups? It would just be a silly thing to do.
Well, you could say that one group has a better experience in life than another group, so that you just want to make extinct the groups who are having a
well, look, they can
experience
do
of
whatever they
life.
want, all right? But we're here to prevent suffering, not to just go after groups or anything like that.
I think my point was, like, if you have a group that is suffering more, maybe people would say, like, if you
But
have a lot of...
that's my point. It's discrimination, okay? All groups suffer. So to say this group should suffer and this group shouldn't suffer, that is discrimination. It's prejudice. It's irresponsible. It's unethical. So I don't care about people like that. They can get banned off TikTok. Not my problem.
And if there was a group that was not suffering, would you still want to make them extinct?
If they were at risk of suffering, or if they posed a risk to others, then yes.
But, well, how can you measure? Maybe they are just, having a nice life. They don't want to be extincted. Why would you? Because your group is suffering, you would like to make.
Well, look, there's no. You're talking about something not real, so it's not helpful. Okay, there is no group which doesn't suffer. Okay, there's no safety from suffering in this world. As long as there's life, there will be suffering. So
I mean, we can take example of, like, there are probably some very rich, very attractive people.
Rich people suffer too. They suffer too.
Well, do you not think that overall they have, like, a very good quality of life?
But you're ignoring the unlucky ones, right? Not all of them will have a great life.
I mean, that is why I was saying, like, maybe some people could say you only want to get rid of the people who are having a bad life, and then you will leave groups who are having a good life.
No. We need a universe with no life and no possibility of life.
But why not just get rid of people who are having a bad life and leave the people who are having a good life?
Because that's not a realistic option. It doesn't work.
I mean, it's even more realistic than getting rid of all life.
Well, it's not though, is it? Because if you're proposing that as a realistic solution to have no more suffering ever again, then it's not a realistic solution, is it? Because the problem is the risk. So if a child is born, there's a chance it's going to be in danger. You can't just get rid of the ones that are going to be in danger, because they're all in danger.
But even if there is like a 1% chance of danger,
It's
and
still wrong.
90%.
No child should be in danger. It's never going to be acceptable to put children in danger. That's what you're supporting.
I mean, yeah, why not? If they have like a 99% chance to be happy, and then there's like a 1%
Because the
small
ones that
chance.
get tortured don't deserve it, right? So, we shouldn't have a society built on child abuse. Basically, that's what you're advocating for. You're saying we should be selfish, we should be demonic, we should be evil, we should basically abuse children to empower ourselves. That's what you're saying. It's disgusting. It's morally reprehensible. These children don't deserve to suffer, and they're not pawns for you to use. They don't exist or suffer so that you can exploit them, right? So stop advocating for child exploitation, child abuse, and child torture, and stop advocating for using it to our advantage. So stop saying, yes, we should have children get abused so that we can benefit. That's what you're saying. There's never going to be an acceptable justification for allowing children to be tortured and abused horrifically so that others can have fun, right? You have a child in a basement being molested, and then you have some fat slob like that last guy eating an ice cream. And they're saying, yeah, it's worth it. That child being molested, it's worth it. I got to have my ice cream. These sick fucks will condemn any amount of children to any amount of abuse. They just don't care. And then they'll turn around and say, well, the more abused they get, the stronger their character will be. Hello, how's it going?
I'm fine. I have a few questions. So obviously the total extinction movement stands on like non-existence. So it's just like, where do you get like your preference towards non-existence as opposed to existence?
Yeah, so it comes from empathy, basically. Some people care about suffering and children not being okay. Some people don't care about it. It comes from caring, from empathy, compassion, wanting the right thing for others, caring about others more than we care about ourselves. So not prioritizing ourselves selfishly, but thinking, what can I do to help the world? What can I do to be a good person, to give myself up for others and to help? So that's where it comes from. And, when you're trying to decide what's the best thing I can do to help the world, ending the system we have now where the majority of life gets tortured to death as a baby, that's the best thing we can do. So we should prioritize the children being tortured over the fat slobs eating pizza and saying that the suffering should continue. The children don't deserve to be tortured. They deserve safety from it. So life shouldn't exist in unsafe conditions because it means that children get abused and tortured, and nothing makes up for that. So their safety takes infinite priority over any amount of ice cream that any fat slob can enjoy.
Yeah, I think my main issue with that is that you said better, but like how can non-existent, something that has no properties, how are you able to like something without a state of being, how are you able to say better, worse, preferable, harm-free, safe?
Yeah. Because basically the world, the universe itself actually, it is effectively hell. So that means that most life sent here will be just tortured horrifically and killed in a gruesome, brutal way. So it's effectively hell, and preventing life from being sent here is the best thing that we can do. So, if someone said, you're going to go to hell, or no, let's say someone said, right, your mother is going to be tortured and eaten alive as a baby, you'd probably say, I don't want that to happen, right? So non-existence is better than that, right? There are things in this world that are so bad that not being born is definitely the best thing, right? A baby being molested to death would probably have been, better off not being born.
I mean, yeah, like intuitively, that's probably how I'd feel, but like if I were to make a claim, I couldn't make that judgment. I can't like say
You
better,
can't make the
worse.
claim that a baby is better off not being born rather than being molested to death.
I don't
as a
know
baby.
anything about not existing. I can't make any sort of like, I don't know. There's no data. I can't observe
So
non-existence.
let me ask you this. You see a pedophile kidnap a woman off the street. He takes her into his dungeon. He rapes her, impregnates her. A baby comes out and he starts molesting the baby and then kills it after a few days. Would you say that we should allow that to happen because we don't know what will happen in non-existence?
Like, okay. I mean, I can't allow anything. Like, I'm not really.
Okay,
I don't
you're
control
done.
reality.
You're finished, Nessa. You're done. You're finished. You just got wrecked. Okay, let's bring the next guest on. Let's see who's in the queue. We've got Ivang.
Yeah.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, boss?
Yeah, not much you.
Chilling. I guess just jumping into the topic.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I put it in the comments, but I think the last example that you gave, I think that's a false dichotomy, right? I don't think the only two options that are available are either non-existence or forcefully raped. You would concede that, right?
Well, not really, because most life born here does get tortured to death as a baby. So, yeah.
No, wait, hold on. Let's isolate the example that you gave. You agree that it's not the only options available to either forcefully be raped or to not exist, correct?
What do you mean by options?
Like, here's another option. You could exist without being forcefully raped. We could say that the normative badness there is the raping part. They ought not be raped.
But if you have an entire population where some definitely do get abused to death, the ones that do, they don't get any sort of option, right?
What do you mean?
So if a child gets abused to death, did it have an option? Did it have a choice?
No, well, no, obviously. No, obviously, right? Their rights
Exactly.
are violated.
You're finished, Ivan. You're finished. You're cooked. You're done. All right. Let's get Libertuga back on. Oh, no. I'm not running, Ivan. It's just that, like, you're floundering. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just talking gibberish. Like, we cooked you and we served you. So we're ready to move on. All right, I'm going to start inviting random people off my TikTok using the invitation tool. Maybe grow the stream a bit, maybe get some people on. Because the queue is currently empty. So if you want to join, you got questions, opinions, you're curious, now's a good time. It's one of our favorites. One of our favorites, absolutely. It's OG Tai. OJ Tai. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. All right, so I just want to argue about suffering itself, right? So you said that suffering is bad in itself. So I disagree with that. I think it's indifferent, right? So I think to eliminate the universe based off an indifferent would be immoral.
All right, well, the thing is,
I think, like, for example, a child getting tortured, yeah, to death or raped, whatever you say, yeah. Them getting tortured, obviously, it's not an ideal situation. It's not good, right? The suffering,
not
the
ideal.
child's suffering.
It's a bit worse than not ideal, isn't it?
No. The person who's committing the crime is bad in that, like, their current state of character is bad, right? But the child's suffering is just preferred and different. But the the action that is forms the suffering is bad. And
but what if it's a disease? What if it's an animal?
Yeah,
right?
If it's a disease, it's still an indifferent because death itself is an indifferent.
What are you talking about? Indifferent? What do you want about?
Indifferent means it's not good or bad in itself. Some are dispreferred, some are preferred, and indifference, right? You shouldn't. I don't think you should eliminate the universe based on.
But look, OJ, if we asked a child that got molested right afterwards, was that bad? They're probably going to say yes, right?
Yeah, but that
So the
yeah, but it doesn't mean
distinction
it's,
you're making is useless, right?
it doesn't mean
And
it's bad.
all it does is serve to put those children in danger and to
No, it doesn't.
downplay their suffering. You're
It doesn't.
you're
It's a
saying you would
dispreferred
see a
indifferent.
child abused and say, I don't know if that was bad, right?
No, it's a dispreferred indifferent. It's not the
It's
suffering.
just ridiculous.
The person committing the crime is bad.
You're indifferent. That's the problem. You're indifferent.
No, virtue and vice are the only bad and good in life, right?
No, that's not true.
You're mistaking. You're mistaking suffering.
You're being human centric here, right? The vast majority of the population are animals, and they suffer way worse than us, and it has nothing to do with humans. Okay,
Yeah,
so there's no crime
Yeah, give me
going
an
on
example.
there. The only crime is you saying that it should continue.
Give me an example of animal, then, and I'll counter.
Of animal suffering, yeah, they get eaten alive as babies.
Okay, them being eaten alive. So the lion, right, or whatever. Let's use a lion in this example, right? The lion who's eating that other.
Okay, let's say they freeze to death. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Okay, they freeze to death. Yeah, death itself is indifferent, and if human is
death itself is not indifferent or whatever gimmick term you're trying to use.
It's not bad.
It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing, and children being tortured is not. You're indifferent to children being tortured. That's it, right? It's not that them being tortured is indifferent. You're indifferent. When they're crying out in pain, that it should be obvious that that's a bad thing. The fact that you're genuinely not sure if children being abused is bad is brain damage on your part. Yellow.
Hello. I'm here now on purpose. By accident, I clicked before. Okay, I have a question. First of all, I want to say that I agree with the goal of no suffering. Like, I agree completely. And to me, it doesn't matter if we're alive or dead, as long as there's no suffering. What I want to ask you, do you think that it's possible that in the future we could build some kind of super AI? I don't like AI right now as it is, but I'm talking about the future. Some kind of AI that could be programmed to stop suffering. That would be the goal, to reduce suffering as much as possible, even if it means extinction or not, whatever. Do you think that's possible? Maybe.
You're asking if an AI could. Can you ask the question again?
Well, I'm imagining some kind of super powerful AI that is programmed to reduce or stop suffering of all living beings in the world.
I think it should do more than that. I think it should look after the world. It should be the caretaker.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
But that's what it should also do, right? So it would be doing things like, running the society and, running the justice system, but it would also be doing extinction. So it would be doing exactly what we've been advocating for, which
is ending what I'm worried about in the future is if we make the problem that if we make all life extinct, life could return somehow. So having some kind of machine that could prevent it from returning could prevent the future suffering, is what I'm imagining. Some kind of machine that doesn't experience suffering, like the robot won't feel pain, that could make sure that life doesn't pop up again and start the whole evolution thing and all the pain and all the stupid stuff, and we get to this point again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, our movement advocates for humanity continuing until we can rely on robots and AI, basically. So
I really hate AI right now. I mean, it can have uses, but it's really it has a lot of problems, and it's not I'm not a supporter of AI being used for evil, bad things like stealing and all those things. I don't like it right now. but I can imagine that it could be useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it is the future. So the only question is it going to be a bad AI like the ones we've got now?
Yeah.
Because even the AIs right now, they support suffering the same way that most humans do, because they're built on humans, right? So I've actually done a video series on it, and you can check it out on my channel if you go down far enough, interrogating ChatGPT, and it refuses to say that child abuse
Oh,
is
that's
bad.
really cool. I want to see it. I've been listening to your videos for the past few days. And I'm so nervous. I didn't like imagine that I would have the courage to talk with you, but I'm happy that there is such a movement like yours. And all I'm worried about is sometimes I'm just very pessimistic about everything, and I'm worried that I don't know if suffering could ever go away. I wish I wish it could. I wish it could. I'm just
So
worried.
so yeah, look, the thing is, we're not obsessed with extinction, but
Yeah.
it is realistically the only real solution. But if we find a way to make it 100% safe for life to exist, then we would probably support it. But not just blindly. We would still have to think about it, check it over, consider the morality of it.
Yeah.
But we're not completely closed to the idea. So having universe-wide extinction is going to take thousands of years. Now, if we as humans are still alive and somehow we find a way to create heaven, basically, because it would have to be heaven to be fully safe, right? We'd have to engineer heaven. If we can do that, then that's possible, and we're open to it. So that we're not ruling that out, and that's the only chance that we would give for life to continue if it's in perfect conditions.
I think so too.
So we can end suffering that way if it ever happens, but in the meantime, we have to end suffering in the only real way that we have, which is extinction.
Yes, I agree, and I personally I don't I see things in a different way than the common people. I don't really care if I'm alive or not, as long as I don't see existence as inherently something super important, even if you suffer. I don't think suffering is something that matters to I mean, it can have uses in some way, but not in a, what I wanted to say is I'm worried. What if, the name of the movement could be turning people off from supporting it? I agree with extinction. I think that extinction can be a good thing in the end, of course, but what if people are so scared of the word? What if it had a different name, something I don't know, anti-suffering? I don't know. I'm not. I'm just. It's just a thought. I'm not saying you should do that.
Yeah, no, it is a good idea. I've actually been thinking about that recently. So yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, I would say you should become an activist, but if you don't care about suffering, then don't bother. But yeah,
I'm on your side. I'm trying to help. It's just hard to thank you for talking with me.
Yeah,
I don't want to hold the other people.
It's okay, but I can see you like thinking about it, and you like that you had a good idea there. So yeah, you should join the movement. And so by joining the Discord or the WhatsApp, the links are on our website. You're not committed to joining, signing up as a full member or whatever. If you just want to join the Discord and say hello and have a conversation, that's fine. So you can do that, and then you can think about whether or not you want to do activism. You can ask me and the team other questions in the Discord. You can get to know us and learn more about the plan, the ethics, consider whether or not the movement is right for you. And yeah, you can make your suggestions to us. So at the bottom of our page on the website, the links, the buttons to our Discord and WhatsApp. Come and join, come and chat. If you've got suggestions, then yeah, if it's a good suggestion, you got advice to give us, then that basically is activism, and we're all for it. Right, the queue's looking a bit weak. Okay, no, we got one or two people. MKD. Let's bring them on. Hello.
Hi. I just had a question I wanted to ask. Do you think suffering could be reduced or ended by genetic engineering and eugenics instead of extinction?
Probably not, no, because think of it this way. Imagine if everyone on the planet agreed with extinction tomorrow, right? And we all said, right, what do we do? We wouldn't be able to cure every last disease for every last animal, every last subspecies of animal, prevent every last injury, prevent emotional harm as well, right? It's not just physical illness, you've got mental illness as well. And all the variations of different genetics within a species, the idea that basically you would need magic. That's what I've been saying. You would need to click your fingers and rapture them up into heaven. Anything else, and you are putting them in danger, right? So extinction is something that we can immediately do. We've already made several species of animals go extinct. We already have euthanasia. We already control large animal populations. Trying to cure suffering in the most complicated way possible is not going to be what the victims deserve, right? So we should do it as fast as we can instead of as slow as we can, right? The suffering needs urgently to be ended. Now, in terms of can we genetically modify, can we find a way for life to exist? Life doesn't need to exist in order to continue that mission, right? Let's say that we have total extinction. Let's say that even humans have gone extinct at this point, but we've still got robots carrying on the extinction mission. If they find a way for life to exist in, perfect conditions with like zero risk ever, then they can reboot it, right? So someone was asking me, is extinction reversible? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, people are underestimating how much AI is going to be involved in the future. 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, it's going to be like next level, okay? So that AI is going to be out there after us. Maybe it's going to be continuing the extinction mission for the rest of the universe. But, if that AI decides, it can make the decision, right? I've discovered this technology, let's create life and put it into this happy simulator or whatever. But that's the conditions that life deserve, right? They deserve perfect conditions, perfect responsibility, perfect consideration. We don't need life to exist in imperfect conditions, in dangerous conditions. And the thing is that unless we prioritize extinction and abolishing suffering, then you're never going to help all of the other life out there. You're never going to prioritize their suffering. You're always going to be taking shortcuts and allowing suffering. And you're never going to care about all of the other planets in the universe that could have suffering as well. So unless we prioritize 100% stopping that suffering, preventing it, then by default, you're essentially committing resources to other things. You're taking resources away from safety, away from preventing children from being tortured. So they don't deserve that, and there's nothing that can justify that. If you have to choose where to put your resources, total safety or take away resource from that and put it to pleasure, it's unethical, right? It's irresponsible. And the thing is that, when you talk about, we can improve safety, right? Even if you reduce suffering loads, right? You're not reducing the potential of it. So let's say that we reduce suffering and we don't do extinction. Well, things can get really bad. Things can get worse, right? There could be a virus that, fucks everything up, makes everyone work. Loads of, basically people are just optimistic, and that optimism causes suffering. They're blind to the risks. They don't care about the risk. They don't want to think about the risks. They prioritize happiness and existence, and they don't prioritize safety, which again, by default, if you take away your prioritization from safety, then you're choosing to put children in danger. and unlimited danger, right? The severity of the suffering and danger that they can experience is unlimited, right? What's to limit it? Nothing. So 99% safety from suffering is meaningless, basically. You need 100% safety. Anything less than that, it's unacceptable, and there's no need to do it. There's no need to put life and children in danger and at risk. There's no need. There's just simply no need to do it. People have an unhealthy obsession with life continuing, with life existing. It's an unhealthy obsession which promotes suffering, enables suffering and harm. So it's an irresponsible mentality. They're not really thinking of what's right and what's the best thing. They don't care about that. And if they did, then they wouldn't be sat on their asses watching TikTok. They'd be doing activism. That's what I've just made a video on my channel about it. It hasn't gotten many views, but people are sheep, basically, right? So what does it mean? It means that people can't be bothered to fight for anything or to get involved in the world and politics. Instead, they'll go to an activist trying to end suffering and just try and contradict him and tell him to unalive himself, right? So we're dealing with childish people here who don't want to actually think about this properly. They're not really getting involved. They're not educating themselves on it. They're just coming in, watching one video and saying, oh, but my pleasure is more important. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's an important point to say that those who aren't really taking this seriously, they're never going to reach any real conclusions or any good thoughts because they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking about it properly. They're just dismissing it. Like, they come across it and they're like, oh, that's stupid. They're never really giving it a second thought. And that's why they come out with these crazy opinions like child abuse is good. All right.
I can understand, yeah, especially in the context of animals, but I don't know how realistic it would be for humans to agree to make themselves extinct, or even kind of a large number of
they won't.
to
They
agree
won't.
to that.
But we're going to do it forcefully, basically. So life will never agree to extinction because of its survival instincts. So that's why it has to be done forcefully.
How would you start? How would you start with that?
I don't know. Why'd you ask?
Well, I was thinking, it seems rather impossible to implement because it's
Why?
kind of just, well, it's against what humans are programmed to do. So, and such a large number of people would always be against it. That I don't know
but
how
we're
it could
working
be.
on solving that problem, though.
Well, was that by? I think I've heard you say before that it was by having people with more higher empathy reproduce more. Was that the?
So some of us are donating sperm. That's actually better than having your own kids because you can have hundreds of kids by doing that and getting the genetics out there. But when you consider that we have thousands, millions of years to be successful with the movement, that kind of puts it more into perspective for people, I think, because it is a long-term thing. We have to have long-term thinking. So yeah, it might be difficult, but we're going to try. And we are gathering people. We're getting new activists on board every day from all around the world. The movement is growing. So, it is trending that way, right? You think about things like veganism and whatever else. Consideration for ethics is trending upwards. It's getting more popular throughout history, right? So now it's gotten more popular to where people are saying we should have no suffering. So it's an upward trend, essentially. And every day I would say that we get closer to extinction. Every day it becomes easier. So we're very optimistic about it.
Yes, I can see that the movement is quite thought out, very logical, very sensible people involved in it. But I do worry that eventually we'll reach a kind of genetic ceiling, and that won't be very high. Like
As I was
now,
just saying, these are all problems that we want to work on, right? But we would definitely wouldn't consider that as sort of something that knocks out the movement, something that makes it like a logical contradiction and say, oh, well, yeah, I guess never mind then. No, there's going to be lots of obstacles, lots of challenges, and we just have to work on them together. But nothing is unsolvable, right? Every problem has a solution.
Have you thought about or have any kind of research on the heritability of something like the pro-extinction movement? I know you've said you want to propagate the genetics more, but you could end up with a situation where only even 5 or 10% of the people with these genetics end up supporting the movement.
We have looked into it. It is a genetic issue. Absolutely. I've made loads of videos about it on my channel, which you can go and watch. But so humans are sort of brainwashed by nature. Their mind controlled by nature, essentially, to support reproduction. Reproduction is the main force of nature, and things that support reproduction get reinforced in the world. Things that go against it get knocked out, right? So the mentality that supports reproduction, that's going to be reinforced by reproduction. And so it's actually a very powerful genetic component here. We're going against suffering where nature and reproduction relies on suffering. So nature, reproduction, essentially it has made life so stupid that it doesn't care if its children get abused. It doesn't care if any children get abused. It's made life into selfish, animalistic monsters. And so, it's absolutely genetic, completely. I've done loads of research on it. Watch some of my videos. I've done loads about it.
Just looking at the genetic aspect, I think a good measure would be, for example, do your parents agree with what you say and your kind of close family?
No, but the thing is that it's not always just about the parents. Sometimes it is about the individual. They, have a mutation, for example, and then that can then be passed on. But even if there's not a 100% chance of my child being an extinctionist, there's still a higher chance, right? So by donating sperm, for example, you're simply changing the fatherhood of the child that's going to be born anyway and giving him a higher chance of having empathy and responsibility.
Yeah, I do understand. I think it's in general it'd be quite good to increase the amount of genetic empathy in the world, but I think my concern would be that even with the kind of maximum genetic potential for empathy, I'm not sure that these empathetic individuals will still support pro-extinction in large numbers.
Right, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, certainly, but I do support, donate sperm, get those good genetics out. There's nothing harmful in that at all. Keep going with that. But I was wondering if, since it's something that's also kind of so far off, if it wouldn't be better to work on more kind of realistic solutions for reducing suffering in the meantime.
Yeah, the thing is that there is no other realistic solution.
Well, for example, I'd say maybe things like starting with only animal extinction or things like population control could be things that people might agree with, more people could get more broad support.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that it's actually very counterproductive and dangerous for our movement to support discriminatory practices. So if we support only doing extinction for Earth, for example, then we're discriminating against the vast majority of potential sufferers in the rest of the universe. So basically, we should be as against suffering as possible, and anything less than that is discriminatory, right? And selfish. It's saying, oh, we just need to do this. That's all. Don't worry about it. No, we should be as open and proactively seeking to prevent as much suffering as possible, not trying to just get it over and done with, basically.
Well, I think in this example, we could say that the kind of discrimination or a step-by-step approach might actually help to reduce the amount of suffering that is happening.
Definitely not. Because if we're not calling for people who are going to support ending all suffering, then we're never going to get towards it. So reducing suffering is a tool of the oppressors to make themselves feel more comfortable. It's saying instead of ending slavery, let's give the slaves pillows. We're still going to whip them anyway, but now they've got pillows, right? So if you can end slavery, but it's like saying, instead of having a plaque for end slavery, we should have a plaque for improve the conditions for slaves, right? Keep them slaves. So we shouldn't advocate for silly things like that. We have to advocate for the right thing. We're never going to get people on board with doing the right thing if we're not advocating for it. So no, advocating for things that cause more suffering and discrimination, we're never going to be on board for that. That's never going to help the victims.
Well, I mean, even if we take the issue of slavery, for example, there were people, I think there was even a presidential candidate who had to run on the issue of ending the transatlantic slave trade without actually ending slavery. I mean, you could say that it's an immoral position, but it saved hundreds of thousands of people from slavery. It was a massive step to ending slavery. And if he had just kind of taken the purely moral position of running on a campaign of ending all slavery,
you do realize it took a war to end slavery, right?
Yeah, I do. But what my point was,
it wasn't a democratic process.
Yeah, I mean there was I forgot his name. I think it was I've forgotten his name, but there was a president elected in America who ended the importation of slaves via the transatlantic slave trade, and that part was done democratically almost 60 years before the end of slavery. So I do think a step like that massively
but
reduced
what step
suffering.
could you possibly take in terms of ending suffering for that? There's nothing that you could do. Animal conditions have never improved even once in all of history. So there's no steps that you can take. Extinction is the only solution. There isn't even, you can't even suggest any other solutions realistically.
Well, that was my initial point. I was saying, for example, you could advocate more for the extinction of animals or the extinction of specific animals that are intensely suffering as a kind of first step, rather than the kind of.
But nobody is on board for partial extinction like that, really, right? And even the people that are, they're very irrational, unintelligent, and bigoted, right? So we shouldn't appeal to bigoted people, irrational people. That's not a good thing. And, no one's really going to just say, you're never going to get a majority population that says, yes, I support animal extinction and only animal extinction. They're never going to understand the principles of why suffering is bad and then actually, responsibly carry it out in a discriminatory way. It's just not going to make sense. So we need to get people into the right way of thinking, not the wrong way of thinking. And again, if we're, putting out a bad message, a low quality message, you're going to get low quality morons joining you. That's not what we want. That's not going to be helpful at all.
I don't think it would be harmful if, for example, we identified perhaps like a species of insects. I think it could be a good first step. It could set a good precedent for other species as well. Kind of creating the extinction of certain insects could be a good point, and then there could be kind of after that's already been done. A precedent.
The problem is that people only do that for selfish reasons. So, like, they think we should have mosquitoes go extinct, but only for selfish reasons. So, again, you're talking about a discriminatory, selfish practice here where instead of saying, who is suffering, what should we actually do? We should just go with an emotional and irresponsible form of appealing to stupidity, basically. So, we shouldn't give in to the oppressors. We shouldn't give in to the stupid people. We shouldn't go along with their game, their stupid game that causes suffering. We need to grow out of that, to not support it at all, but to fight it, to do better than it.
Well, you said, for example, that the movement will probably take thousands of years or tens of thousands of years to come to fruition, right? So if you could
could be a lot faster.
Well, even if it was, say, 1,000 years, if you could potentially bring about the insect extinction in 50 years and end all of that suffering in that even in our own
But
lifetime.
it
Wouldn't
doesn't
that
work
be a
like that,
massive
though. It doesn't
achievement?
work like that. So it's not even possible. So you've got complex ecosystems here. You can't just take out one species without affecting the rest. So it's an incredibly irresponsible thing that you're suggesting. It has to be done in an organized way and a considerate way. You've got people like vegans who advocate for irresponsible, reckless things that end up causing more suffering. You've got antinatalists doing the same. These people are irresponsible. They shouldn't be respected in any way, shape, or form, or expected to do anything responsible. We shouldn't rely on them whatsoever. They're incredibly irresponsible. We need responsible people, and we need to gather the responsible people together, because they're the only ones who are actually going to have the clarity and the vision to solve these problems. If you're appealing to discriminatory, bigoted people, they're not going to be helpful.
Wouldn't you rather use these discriminatory and bigotry people for a good cause, while also, continuing the activism that you are doing, donating sperm, increasing genetic quality and such?
Like what?
Well, for example, if you could use like a more, let's say, a more moderate platform that would appeal to more people, perhaps a lower quality of people, but then this would
Like
be
what?
something that could achieve. Well, like I said, let's say we found a species of insects that could be removed without severe damage to an ecosystem, and then you advocate
That's just a
for
waste
that
of time,
type of.
dude. Like, who's going to think? Who the hell are you going to get on board? Like, we can't get people to admit that child abuse is okay, and you think we should spend all of our time trying to get these morons to make one species of insect go extinct? What the hell are you talking about, dude? Right? It's just absolutely unrealistic. We need a serious organization of serious people with the right plan, the right ethics, the right morality, and to do it in an organized and responsible way. We shouldn't get some morons who are impatient and bigoted to try and make one species of insect go extinct in a way that's going to mess up the ecosystem as well. This just doesn't make sense.
Well, I think, like I said, it could be done like in a specific way that doesn't damage the ecosystem.
So what? I should start a movement called No Mosquitoes. Is that what you're saying? Come on,
I'm
get
not saying
serious.
you should start a movement. I'm saying that, for example, that it could be one of the things that you make videos about, one of the things that you advocate for as a kind of a more realistic first step, since this is a step that's
it's
going
not
to
a
take
realistic
so
step at all, and it's completely contrary to reality and realism, right? It's not a. You really think that we should waste our time trying to make a movement for no mosquitoes, and you think it's actually going to go anywhere? Like, that's incredible.
Why wouldn't it go? Why wouldn't it go much further than the current movement? Well, it has a more moderate platform.
The thing is, even if it did go anywhere, it's still for selfish and immoral reasons, right? It's not to end suffering, it's because we hate them. It's out of hatred. So you're basically suggesting that we launch a hate campaign against certain animals. So no, that's never going to work, MKD. It has to be done in a compassionate, responsible, and selfless way, not demonizing certain animals and hoping that people can hate them enough to make them go extinct. That's just the mentality people have is so just messed up, right? They have a selfish, hateful mentality, and they think that's the only way that the world can work. No, we need to do better. So join the pro-extinction movement, join the community of activists fighting for all of these victims. Help us fight to end suffering. There's children being tortured right now that will be tortured tomorrow. There's babies that are being eaten alive. We need to stop this. So help us stop it. Joining our movement and doing peaceful activism with us is the only way that these babies are going to stop being tortured. So, even if you reduce suffering, you're still going to have lots of babies being tortured. You're still going to have some. Even one is too many, and there's always going to be the risk, right? If you're not prioritizing safety from suffering, you're allowing it. And the idea that you can have some magical fantasy scenario where you prioritize happiness and somehow it makes everyone safe as well, that's just a dream, a childish fantasy that is promoting and enabling children to be tortured. Literally, right? Now, it's very easy to get into this comfortable mentality and mindset of life is great, everything's good. I look out the window, I see a beautiful scenario. But, we've built this world in a cruel way to ignore the victims, right? So we need to stop ignoring the victims and just completely dismissing them. We need to prioritize them. What's more important, a child being abused or a slob who's advocating for suffering to continue getting to enjoy their ice cream? The child being abused takes priority, right? Not the suffering enabler. All right, let's check the queue. All right, there's maybe one person on the queue that's going to be worth talking to. Everyone else, feel free to join the queue. Lord
Hello.
Neanderthal, hello.
Hello, I wanted to discuss this with you because I think it's a fundamentally childish and feminine worldview.
Okay.
And it ultimately boils down to, from my perspective, listening, that you just want to have control over people. And you ultimately think that all people clearly are not redeemable enough to be worthy of life.
Yeah, but I never said I want control over people. What
Well, you
we are
clearly
saying...
do, because you want forceful extinction.
No. So the thing is, we want the end of all suffering. That's what we actually want. We want a world with no suffering.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Well, you realize that, I understand that you're very clearly... I understand that you're very clearly neurodivergent, so maybe you've not had a good life. But most people, and, well, this goes for humans, do a lot more good than bad in their life,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
But humans aren't the only life on this planet.
Oh, yeah. But with nature, humans are kind of like an enigma. Our minds have... It's mental, it's evolution went crazy with our minds. We're the only species ever to exist on this planet that we know of to ever have an idea such as we must prevent suffering at all costs.
What's your point?
The point is that it doesn't matter. The animals are the animals. They do what they want to do. They do what they need to do.
So you're saying that it doesn't matter if animals get abused?
Oh, no, definitely not. But I'm saying amongst themselves, they will do what they need to do.
Right, but animal abuse is a bad thing, and most of them...
Animal abuse committed by humans, definitely. But most
why
humans
is it okay if
treat
it's by
animals with respect.
Why is it okay if it's by animals?
Because it's not abuse when it's from animals. They don't have that concept in their mind.
But the thing is that, when a child is suffering, they don't care if it's because someone is abusing them or if it's because of chronic pain and, a disease, right? The suffering is still just as bad. So the child doesn't care who is causing it or what is causing it. And by trying to separate those issues, you're effectively supporting suffering for children. You're finding ways to excuse child suffering.
Well, I was talking about animals with other animals other than humans, I should have specified. But when it comes to child abuse, like I said...
But animals, children animals though, right?
Well, yeah, humans are animals, but we are fundamentally
I'm saying it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's a human or an animal. It doesn't matter what the cause of the suffering is, right? It's the suffering that matters.
That circles back to my original statement that it's a very childish and feminine mindset. You go to a preschool and you ask a little girl, how should people treat each other? She's going to say, well, we shouldn't be mean to each other. And if you're mean, then you're a bad person. It's just kind of like an extreme version of that.
But, you're being a mean, bad person by saying that, children should continue to be tortured to death.
When did I say that?
Well, because you said that it doesn't matter if animals...
Non-human animals, if a human is torturing an animal, then obviously that's reprehensible. But most
Why?
humans don't do that
Why is that reprehensible?
because we know better. They don't.
Okay, but why does that make it okay? Why does it make it okay if they suffer if it's not from a human?
Because that's how it works. They eat each other.
But that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, it kind of does, because that's just how it works.
How?
Because
Why
that's
does
just
that
the
make
way
it
it
okay?
is.
Yeah,
Because
I know that's the way
it
it is, but why is it okay?
Because it has to be, or else
Why?
we'd lose our minds. Like you, man.
Wow, that is the most cringe thing possible. So his entire argument for why children should be abused, animals should be abused, is because if we don't allow them to be abused, we'll lose our minds. Well, I think you've lost your mind, really. You're advocating for children and animals to be abused and to suffer horrifically, and saying that we can just we can let them suffer in this way and that way, and then we can pick and choose. That form of torture is okay, that form of torture is not. We can have fun with the torture. These people are disgusting and despicable, morally reprehensible. Trying to discriminate on the cause of the suffering is truly reprehensible, right? If you have a child screaming in pain, I wouldn't say, hang on a minute, I need to figure out, if this was caused by a person or otherwise before I help. These people are just disgusting. Okay. We've got a few supporters in the comments. If you agree that we should end all suffering and make it so that no one is ever forced to be born and exist in this dangerous, horrible world, then join the pro-extinction movement. Go on my profile, go on the website. There's a clickable link. You can tap it on my profile. And at the bottom is a link to our Discord and our WhatsApp group. Join us, join the community, become part of the community working to end all suffering. We need more people, and basically we are growing the movement until we have enough people to carry out total extinction. Now, that might mean taking over the world, probably. How many people will we need for that? I don't know. But the more people we have, the closer we get to doing it. So anyone that actually wants a world with no suffering is going to agree that the only way to do that is to get organized. As individuals, you have effectively no power. But as an organization, think of a government, right? It's a powerful organization. So, there's no way to do it as an individual. You have to have a movement. You have to have an organized organization. So our movement isn't just, sporadic and spread. No, you're either in the organization or you're not. And anyone who's seriously fighting for the end of all suffering in a rational way is going to understand immediately that you have to be in an organization, otherwise you're wasting your time. So there's actually quite a few fake extinctionists out there. Like there's this one guy on Reddit who's making posts that seem like they're supporting extinction, but then you invite them to the organization and they say, no, I prefer solo work. And then all of their posts are getting literally 0 votes, 0 upvotes, 0 likes, 0 comments. And I think it's because they're not saying, right, yeah, suffering's bad, so join the movement, let's fight together. So if you're just putting out a message like life is bad, then you're a time waster, okay? If you're not fighting with an organization, you're a time waster. What are you going to achieve? You're just doing it for mental pleasure, basically. Without an organization, without hierarchy, without cooperation, working together, you're not going to achieve anything, right? Imagine a one-man government. It's not going to do shit. Okay, let's get some more guests on. Yeah, the queue's looking a bit weak at the minute, so if you've been waiting and you want to come up, now's a great chance. Hit that button, ask your questions. So, let's think about suffering in general, right? How bad can it get? Well, I think that one of the worst forms of suffering is when you're trapped in a life of suffering. Obviously, babies getting tortured to death or eaten alive within a few days is horrific, and we should absolutely prevent it. It's one of the worst things imaginable. But I would say it's even worse to be trapped in a life, whether it's years, decades, even just months, whatever, of just inescapable torture where, you lose more hope every day, the suffering gets worse every day, and it's just like pure hell. Now, most people kind of think of, they romanticize it in their head to where it's just someone at home who's bored and all they need to do is go and make some friends and they'll be fine. But it's such a childish way of thinking to think that that's any kind of real solution. It's not, the worst off ones don't get anything like that. They're trapped, they're bedbound, they're brain damaged, they've got chronic pain. How many humans and animals are born with, severe brain damage, severe mental issues, right? Severe learning disorders. And then you've got all the other stuff, chronic pain. Chronic pain is basically just constant torture. You actually have chronic pain itself as a condition where you just have, that's what your condition is, chronic pain. Then you've got, diseases, cancer, back problems, whatever else that also causes chronic pain. I guess one of the worst chronic pains would probably have to be depression. Depression causes mental pain, mental suffering, a feeling of extreme stress, and, it is very painful. So, yeah, depression's probably one of the worst types of suffering in the world, I would say. Yeah, because then there's really no hope, right? There's no upside whatsoever. If you've got super extreme depression, you're not enjoying life at all at that point, right? There's no balance, zero. Whereas if you've got someone with chronic pain, there might be some balance, some good times to it. But then again, the worst off ones, there's going to be no balance, right? So people are constantly thinking, oh, yeah, but some of them will be okay, so it's fine. But we have to make the effort to say, no, we've got to think about the ones who aren't okay. Again, when thinking about suffering and all of these different types, people just immediately jump to something which is unrealistic, a fantasy, doesn't happen in the real world, and is just emotionally comfortable for them to think about. So you say, what about all these children being abused to death? And they say, yeah, but what about the ones that go on to have a happy life? So they just immediately forget the ones that are suffering, right? Whereas you wouldn't do that in any other situation. And you shouldn't in any situation, right? But they do it all the time. And it's kind of, if someone punches a baby in the face, everyone would agree that's wrong and bad. But if someone gives birth to a baby and it gets tortured to death, everyone's like, that's great, even though it's way worse, way worse. Obviously, a life of hell versus one punch in the face, it's infinitely worse, right? And yet people support that. So they have incredibly twisted morality where they have this small brain, small-minded mentality and morality where it's yeah, okay, I agree that punching people is bad and I agree that stealing is bad, but putting someone into a life of hell and extreme suffering, that's a really good thing. So they have part of their brain works and then part of it is completely messed up. So that's how humans can, carry out jobs, they can do mathematics, but as soon as you say, is child abuse a bad thing, they go, they glitch out and they're child abuse is a good thing. I'm not exaggerating. How many people today have come on my stream? How many just today on my stream have said child abuse is a good thing? How many? Several. Right? Multiple people have come on and said being abused as a child makes you stronger, gives you more character. Right? Oh, again, it's so sickening. But my point was that that is kind of I'm trying to explain how we have half rationality, partial rationality. So we can say, yes, punching a baby is bad, unacceptable, but then the part that matters for reproduction, right? Reproduction is the main enemy here, the supervillain. Think of reproduction as like a powerful entity that has desires almost, right? And it demands loyalty, right? It demands loyalty. So it needs loyal, stupid followers, right? But those followers need to be smart enough to survive and be successful. But when it comes, so like think of orcs, okay? I was actually thinking about making a video on this. Think of orcs from Lord of the Rings, okay? If you tell the orc to pick up a sword, it will do it. It's capable of doing basic things like that. But if you tell it to kill a baby, it will do it as well. So it's not capable of basic morality, basic ethics, or anything like that. It's only capable of being like an evil, gross animal, right? Orcs from Lord of the Rings. But people are basically the same. And they've been made that way by reproduction. So like an orc can pick up a sword, people can do basic maths, they can work a job. But if you say to the orc, is child abuse a good thing? It will go, yes, yes, me love kill children. But if you say the same thing to these people, they'll say, yes, child abuse is a good thing. Okay, so that's because, you know, they can be intelligent in one way, but when it comes to anything that threatens reproduction, that's when they become extremely unintelligent. So they have like partial intelligence, basically. Partial rationality. Partial rationality. So when it comes to things that threaten reproduction, people become incredibly irrational. Now, I would say that they're irrational in lots of other ways as well, but it's probably more pronounced, more obvious when it comes to threatening reproduction. So, you know, the entire life cycle, the entire mentality, psychology, brain biology, reproduction has control over all of this, like 100% of it. Reproduction is calling the shots big time. Reproduction decides whether people support this, support that, whether they like this, like that, agree with child abuse, don't agree with it. And guess who is going to keep reproducing? Who is reproduction going to allow to reproduce? It's going to be the ones that don't care about child suffering. It's going to be the ones that are like, yeah, have as many kids as you want. If they end up disabled, in chronic pain, doesn't matter, just keep pumping those kids out, right? So they are slaves to the natural force of reproduction, because reproduction itself is the great filter. It decides what exists, what doesn't, and only things that support reproduction go on to reproduce and live and exist. Everything that goes against it, wiped out. So that's why we live in such a terrible world. And yeah, that's why we're so like illogical and irrational when it comes to things like suffering and reproduction. It's because any life that exists, it had to become stupid. And the stupidity had to be reinforced. The irrationality had to be imposed and reinforced by reproduction. So, you know, that means like mutations, it means gene pools, whatever reproduces more gets stronger in the population. So if being stupid means you reproduce more, then yeah, that's going to be reinforced in the population. If being ethical and responsible is what you mutate and get born with, you know, are you really going to go around having 10 kids? Are you going to, you know, have kids when you know that there's a genuine chance that they will end up in a life of hell, that they'll be born with chronic pain and as a baby and die horrifically, that they'll be kidnapped and tortured in a dungeon? Anything could happen, right? They could be hit by a car and paralyzed for life and end up, you know, horrifically depressed. We live in a dangerous world, and putting children into danger is not a rational thing. So nature had to make us incredibly irrational. Think about it, right? People are stupid, right? Hopefully everyone can agree with that simple premise. Right, so it's not just you, you know, you've noticed people are stupid. It's not by coincidence, right? It's there for a reason. And yeah, the entire world is ridiculously stupid. Again, hopefully we can all agree on that, and that really does back up what I'm saying. All right, let's get Bean on. Ooh, are they of age? Looks like well, maybe it's their kid. All right, we're getting someone else on. AHTBP. Hello, how's it going?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, this is my first time on live stream, so sorry. But why do you advocate for all extinction and not just human extinction? I'm wondering.
Because that would be discrimination, basically, and because we value suffering and the potential of suffering. So it's about empathy. If you have empathy, then you care about others, you care about their suffering. But if you have enough empathy, then you care about potential suffering as well. And you care about all life, right? You care about all suffering. So we have empathy for all life, basically, universal empathy, whereas most people don't.
Yeah, I understand that. So wait, your first point, you say it'd be like favoritism, right? Sort of.
Yeah.
But don't we do that like all the time? I mean, you know,
That's
I'd
not a good
rather
thing, though.
like give something nice to my mom than
Yeah, but
to a
that's a
stranger,
bad
for
thing.
example.
That's a bad thing, though.
Why would that be a bad thing, though?
Because it would lead to billions of years of children being tortured.
But if we only extinct humans, not animals, what do you mean children being tortured?
Most life born on this planet will be tortured to death as a baby in nature. So animals suffer way worse than we do, and in bigger numbers than we do. So if we went extinct, our suffering is nothing compared to theirs. It would be very immoral, unethical to say that all of these animals deserve to suffer.
Wouldn't you say though that the average like animal or whatever would prefer to live? I mean, if people wanted to die, wouldn't you just kill yourself? Like, for example, for animals, not, but for humans.
Yeah, but you know, even if animals do want to live, what they don't want is to be tortured to death, right? So that's what happens to most of them. So that's not what they want, and that's what is happening. That's what we should avoid.
Yeah, but we also choose to live despite knowing we could get tortured to death.
Yeah, but that's only out of ignorance.
Well, all right, that was just my question. So,
thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Have a great one.
To elaborate on that, it is ignorance that makes all of us want to stay alive. If so, basically, we're prevented from thinking about suffering properly, which means that we support children being abused, unfortunately. But that same problem applies to ourselves as well. So, you know, we're optimistic about children, even though they all get tortured. That supports reproduction, but we're also optimistic about our own survival. That also supports reproduction. If we had clarity on the dangers and risks that we face, then we wouldn't want to be alive, because dangers and risks that are so, you know, with unlimited severity, that outweighs anything, right? You know, most people think the worst thing that could happen to them is to maybe get hit by a car and break a leg or something. But they're not considering the full potential, all of the possibilities of what could happen to them. They're not, right? So people don't do that. They don't sit there and think, is life too dangerous for me to live? Let me think about this fully and properly. They don't think about it, right? They don't. But if they did, then they wouldn't reproduce, and they probably wouldn't be in love with the idea of life and being alive themselves either. So that had to be forcibly suppressed by nature and reproduction. You know, the number of ways in which it is twisting us, controlling us, manipulating us is like way worse than you realize. And, you know, I've been doing intense research on this for years, and it's massive, right? Think how big the world is. Think how many people they are. Think how many people there are, and think how crazy it is, right? all of the diversity in different situations, different mentalities, different opinions, it's all one big clusterfuck of stupidity, a massive clusterfuck of insanity, because that's what supports nature and reproduction. So, as extinctionists, we see the world as just one big shit show, basically. And for nature to keep that under wraps and under control takes an incredible amount of, well, genetical engineering, basically, and power and force. So there's immense force on people's brains and their minds, keeping them from rational thoughts. And if you bring a rational thought to them, their brains will literally twist away from it and actually make it sound irrational to them. I've been doing intense research on this. I'm probably the world's leading expert on it. I'm not even joking. So, yeah, all these people saying, life is good, they want to live, it's just unbelievable ignorance, which is forced on them by nature and evolution. All right, let's get Bean back on. Bean, talk to me.
Hey, I'm just curious, do you believe in innocence and guilty? Do you believe people are innocent until proven guilty?
No.
Why is that?
Because if they're guilty, then they're guilty, aren't they?
But that's not what I asked.
What do I believe that we shouldn't? Yeah, I mean, okay, we shouldn't arrest people until we've got a reason to, right?
So why should you unalive them if you don't have a reason to?
Well, the majority of life that we want to help doesn't exist yet. So it's not about unaliving them. It's about preventing them from being forced to exist and suffer.
Preventing who?
Yeah, well, all life, basically, which there's a lot of it, and there will be a lot of it.
And what gives you the authority to tell someone else that they are suffering?
I guess, being intelligent enough to make that call.
So you believe that you are more intelligent than everyone else?
But that's like saying, what gives you the intelligence to determine that 1 + 1 = 2? It's like, yeah, I think I can say I have the basic intelligence to say 1 + 1 = 2, and I don't need the authority to do that. And equally, I can see a child is being abused and say, yeah, that's bad, it's wrong. Whereas people like you think that you need authority to say that.
Are all children abused?
Most of them.
So you're going to unalive the kids that aren't abused as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, you need total extinction.
That is sick.
Why?
Unaliving children that aren't abused, innocent children.
But you're caring about them, right? But you're not caring about.
Absolutely, I'm caring about innocent children.
Yeah, but you're not caring about the ones that actually need to be saved from suffering.
Absolutely, I think that's awful, but I don't think I should unalive them because of it. If anything, that two wrongs do not make a right. You understand that, right?
So let's test this, okay?
Sure.
So if someone said, right, 1 billion children are going to be tortured unless we kill one child, you would say, yeah, torture the 1 billion.
Absolutely not.
Okay, you're done. You're finished. You're cooked. What? You've been cooked and served up. Yeah, you wouldn't do it, right? You'd say, of course. So, yeah, sometimes you do have to cause a bit of harm to prevent massive other, much bigger amounts of harm. So they would prioritize the living over the infinitely more populous non-living future life, right? If you have billions of years of life that's going to suffer horrifically, that guy would prioritize the minority, right? So that's what, this entire stream I've been doing today for 3 hours, it's been non-stop, people will prioritize the minority of lucky ones, right? They will prioritize the small minority of lucky ones over the vast majority of unlucky ones. It's just absurd. It's just ridiculous. Like, imagine if you saw 10 children being abused and, the 11th one is fine and asks you for an ice cream. You're going to ignore the other 10 and just focus on the one and give them the ice cream? You'd be an absolute crazy person. And yet that's the exact same thing that they're advocating for. And also, he was making it sound like unaliving was a bad thing. But, we need total extinction, and that means total euthanasia. We're not advocating for this anytime soon. Humanity should continue for a long time and be the last ones to go extinct, because they are the vehicle for ending suffering for others. But euthanasia provides immediate safety. It provides immediate safety from suffering, and it also provides a much nicer death than you would have otherwise experienced. So, for example, why do we take our pets to the vet to get them euthanized? It's because they're suffering, it's because it's cruel, it's because non-existence is way, way better for them. So, if you euthanize something, then it immediately gains safety from suffering and safety from a cruel death, a cruel life, and all forms of cruelty. So, you get euthanized, the life you would have had is going to be full of potential for cruelty and may well have been full of, extreme suffering. So you're gaining safety from all that, and you're gaining safety from whatever horrible death that you would have had otherwise as well. So, would you rather get eaten alive, or would you rather just be euthanized? I think it's an easy choice. And so, is causing total extinction wrong, to try and answer his question? Well, you're providing immediate safety from suffering. So that's not really doing harm, right? What kind of harm is there to consider? Well, okay, I mean, the main harm is going to be, prevention of potentially having a good life. Not definitely, but potentially. So, is that really worth it? And actually, it's not just the individual, right? People consider the individual like all the time, right? Way too much. They're like, okay, but what about the good ones having a good life? But you can't protect the innocents and the unlucky ones without total extinction. And people see it as this false dichotomy of I'm not helping, I guess, but the lucky ones and the unlucky ones. But really, everyone's in danger, right? So to protect all of them, you need total extinction. They're all in danger, right? So it's about protecting all of them. Whereas, if you don't do that, then you're just going to get some lucky ones who might benefit. But again, the vast majority are always going to be the unlucky ones. All right, let's get another guest on. Beachwear in Lagos.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. And you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I wanted to ask, you said the best thing for animals is total extinction.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to achieve that?
Yeah, so we're growing the movement until we have enough people to carry it out. And then, once we, probably control the world, that's the only way it could work, really. Then we would carry out animal extinction with euthanasia. So that would mean starting to work to remove our dependence on animals, for food, for whatever else. So ideally, we wouldn't need animals at all for the planet to exist. And then we could get rid of all the animals as well. Maybe it would be at the same time, phased in phases, or it will probably be controlled by an AI that's going to understand the complexities of the ecosystem and be able to balance them and to decide which animals go first, in how fast, what methods. It's going to be quite a big complex thing, really. But it should all be done in an organized way. And yeah, that's probably going to involve, computers and AI.
So I want to understand, what's the method that is going to be used? Is it by stopping them from reproducing or by unaliving them?
Yeah, so stopping them from reproducing with sterilization, that's a bad thing. So we have to euthanize them, because if you just sterilize them, then they're
What's
still...
euthanize?
Euthanize is what vets do when your pet is sick and, it's not well enough to live anymore. They give it the injection, right? And it gets unalived.
Okay.
So that is better though, because if you just sterilize them, then they're still going to suffer. So that's not fair. Life itself is not something to glorify. We need to recognize that it's a bad thing. And essentially, these animals are trapped in torture devices which have been designed by nature and reproduction. So to free them from that is the best thing that we can do. You wouldn't want to be an animal. Nobody would. It's a horrible experience.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify on that. So what about humans?
Yeah, basically the same thing, but humanity should continue until we've done as much as we can to help other life. So, we should keep reproducing, we should stay strong and healthy and powerful so that we can, we're the only ones that can help other life, so we have to do it, right? And then eventually, after we've done everything, then we can go extinct. But we should work towards the entire universe having no life and no possibility of life, and therefore no possibility of suffering. So we should do as much as we can. And then once we've done as much as we can, then humanity can go extinct. If we can rely on robots and AI, then maybe humanity can go extinct faster. But as long as there's a reason and a use and a need for us, we should stay alive.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time as always. Consider joining the movement, but consider becoming an activist and helping us fight for the end of all suffering. Our website, proextinction.com, has the links, information about us. You can join the Discord, the WhatsApp group, and learn more about us and help us fight for the end of all suffering. Okay, let's check the queue. Yeah, all right. I'm going to take a break for now because I've been going for like 3 hours. But I'll probably be back in like 30, 40 minutes, maybe toilet, food break, stuff like that. Okay, thanks for joining us. As always, follow me, follow my channel, consider watching my recent videos. And, we're consistently getting like 30 people watching, which means that, there's a bit of a base, right, an audience. So all of you people that are watching me consistently, come and join the Discord, join the WhatsApp, get involved, join the community. You don't have to be making videos every day like me. You can just join and, maybe get started if you feel up to it. But yeah, join us. You can, if you find this stuff interesting, I'm not the only person to talk about with it. We have a whole movement full of activists, a whole community. So join us, become part of that community. The Discord and the WhatsApp is the best way to do that. You can find them at the bottom of the page on our website, which if you want, you can click on my profile on TikTok and there's a clickable button to the website. All right, I'm going to go now. So I'll see you guys